Last week, Miss Fox read the book Not Norman, a Goldfish Story in Reader's Workshop. This week, we're going to read it and continue to look closer at it. Last week, you discovered that the boy and Norman became great friends. So Norman blew bubbles, so it made the boy feel like that the boy was being heard, and so they became great friends. But we want to look closer at the title and understand, why is he saying not Norman in bold print? So let's read through it again, and I have some sticky notes because I'm going to be stopping through it because we have heard it already. We're going to stop at different parts and talk a little bit more. So Not Norman, a Goldfish Story by Kelly Bennett and illustrated by Noah Z. Jones. When I got Norman, I didn't want to keep him. I wanted a different kind of pet, not Norman. So when I went back and looked, I noticed, I want you to pay really close attention. We hear not Norman. Look at the balloons. So when we see the balloons, we notice that there is a dog or a cat. So that makes me think, does the boy, did he wish for a dog or a cat? And I looked closer and noticed that there's a dog and cat. It makes me start thinking, I wanted a pet who could run and catch, or one who could climb trees and chase strings, a soft furry pet to sleep on my bed at night. Not Norman. All Norman does is swim around and around and around and around and around and around and around. So here we see the boy. If we were to put a speech bubble above his head, what do you think he might be thinking, or a thinking bubble? Do you think that he's looking and thinking he's a little frustrated? Maybe annoyed that he didn't get the pet that he wanted? What would you write? Think about that. What would you write on his thinking bubble? What do you think he's thinking? That is it, Norman, I decide. I'm trading you for a good pet. Norman doesn't move, not even a fin twitches. How can I trade him like this? No one will want a sorry-looking fish in a gunky bowl. When I drop Norman into his nice clean bowl, he starts dipping and flipping, flapping his fins around. He looks so goofy, I have to laugh. Don't think that just because you made him laugh, I'm going to keep you, I tell him. Tomorrow, you're out of here. Norman blows a stream of bubbles. The next day, I take Norman to school with me. If I talk him up real good during show and tell, maybe someone will want him. On the way there, we see my friend Austin. Austin has a real cool dog and 7 puppies. Want to swap one of your pups for Norman? I ask. Who's Norman? Asks Austin. My goldfish, I say. By the time I rescue Norman, half his water is gone. Notice that the boy is running to rescue Norman because the dog is drinking out of the bowl. Why does he need to rescue him? What do you think that the boy is feeling now? I'm sorry, I tell Norman when we get to school. I'm really sorry. He just stares at me all googly-eyed. Finally, it's my turn to show and tell. Just as I start to talk about goldfish, Emily shouts, Jenny's gone! Who let my snake loose? Does anyone hear the story of how I got Norman? Does anyone even ask to hold the bowl? No, they're all jumping and screaming and chasing the snake. Not Norman. He's looking right at me. Thanks for listening, I tell him. Now the boy is noticing that Norman's looking at him. What do you think he's feeling? How is Norman making the boys' feelings change? Why is he feeling that way? Do you think maybe he's starting to like him now? That afternoon, we go to my music lesson. As soon as it's over, I'm taking Norman back to the pet store. I take out my tuba and begin to play. I glance over at Norman. He's swaying back and forth. Glug, 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 he mouths. Look, Norman's singing, I say. Pay attention, snaps Maestro, and try to pay the proper notes. Maestro makes me stay for extra practice. By the time my lesson is over, it's too late to go to the pet store. Don't think that just because you like my music, I'm going to keep you, I tell Norman. He glugs. That night, I sound asleep when scritch, scritch, screech. What's that noise? Scratch, scritch, screech. Yikes! There's something at the window. Then out of the corner of my eye, I spot Norman! He isn't scared. He isn't swimming around in circles either. He glugs and gives me a little wave. I am not alone. Together, Norman and I slide open the curtains. It was just a broken tree branch. Thanks for watching out for me, Norman. I noticed that he doesn't say not Norman. There's not the bold words not Norman. And you notice that he's saying thanks for watching out for me, Norman. On Saturday, I take Norman to the pet store just like I said I would. I look at the cats and dogs and snakes and birds. I look at the hamsters and mice and lizards too. They all look like good pets, but they are not Norman. When I got home, I wasn't sure I wanted to keep him. But now, even if I could pick any pet in the whole world, I wouldn't trade him. Not Norman. So, at the end, not Norman comes back in there. But are the feelings the same when he's saying not Norman at the end? Probably not. So today, as I read Not Norman, a goldfish story, I keep those questions in mind, how his feelings are changing and why the boy's feelings are changing. So readers talk about books. They not only just read and say that the character was happy, but they talk about books. They talk about books with partners, and we're not at school today, friends, but I know that you can find a brother or a sister or a parent at home, and you can talk about the books that you're reading. You might say, I noticed, like we said throughout the book. I think. I wonder. What do you think? And why do you think that? Asking those questions. Today, tell someone what you discovered about the boy's repetition of not Norman. As he says it throughout the book, not Norman. Using this stem, tell a mom, dad, or brother or sister, the boy kept saying not Norman because. Why was he saying not Norman throughout the book? After you tell someone, continue to read like an avid reader for 15 minutes.